welcome to our Grow of Conceal webinar. I really appreciate making the time to join us today on this webinar. And today, the topic of our discussion is lessons learned from ransomware incidents. I think it's always useful to be able to look at an incident and actually kind of look retrospectively to what happened. But retrospectively is obviously too late for most organizations. If you need to look at an incident, you obviously typically start looking at the kill chain. So how did the breach occur? And from what point did those hackers get in, and who was the weakest link? And that's always useful to understand. And when it comes to cybersecurity, that's the only way we really learn to harden our environment is by actually retrospectively looking at incidents. So today, we thought this was a very useful topic to be discussing with clients and customers and prospective customers and anybody just regarding issues that have occurred in the past, and maybe just to look at those breaches. So kill chains, as I mentioned, are something that is really important, and that's what we're going to be looking at. But in South Africa context, for the information regulator, they actually require a full kill chain analysis when you're reporting a breach. So it's not just it's a nice to have, it's obviously imperative. And that's kind of what we typically talk to customers about and help them actually then harden their environment. Bianca Dafel from Grove. I have been with Grove for a little while, and I've been in cybersecurity probably for the last 8 years, selling to organizations and speak to organizations, consulting across the Africa region, small organizations, large organizations, government, and you typically see very similar cybersecurity problems and issues that they might have.
Thank you. I'm Andria, Delia. I'm a cyber threat intelligence expert. Really what that is taking data, information, and evidence and transforming it into intelligence so we can better use it to build a resilient position. So I mitigate ransomware attacks. I work in the trenches of incident response. I do intrusion analysis. When you say kill chain, it's music to my ears. So I hunt for threats and cyber criminals. I try to map out and expose their schemes and exploits and help protect the public. I also work at building policies and governance within your enterprise. And of course, I partner with amazing products for endpoint detection. So basically, that's what I'm all about.
Sure, fascinating, thank you.
Phenomenal. Maybe I'll go next and I'll pass it over to John. So very, very honored to be here today. Bianca, thank you for setting this up. I am the Senior Vice President of Global Sales here at Conceal. So first of all, I just want to say we have a tremendous partnership with Grove. They keep our sales team very, very, very busy. We talk to a lot of customers across the region, and we're protecting a lot of customers. Toyota Tanzania comes to mind. They're a public case study we'd be happy to share. But I don't want to talk too much about product. I do want Andria to talk a lot about what she's seeing out there, but great to be here with you all. Thank you so much. John, I'll toss it over to you.
Yeah, good morning. Hey, John Kellum. I'm Senior Director of Solutions Engineering for Conceal. I've been with the company for about 2 years now, and I am a retired U.S. Army cyber officer that was doing a lot of fun work in Special Operations Command.
A lot of fun work? Yes, that sounds very interesting. Thank you. Thank you very much. And I'm keeping an eye on the chat, so if anybody wants to comment or ask anything, I'm hoping this will be an interactive kind of discussion as well. Please ask if you'd like to ask any questions throughout the session. So the session, as I mentioned, back from the future, and maybe looking at incidences that have occurred. Now, we often see these headlines that are very much attention grabbing and very sensational, and then when you read the details, often more shocking actually than actually the headlines can actually deliver. And these incidences that have happened are actually, when you start looking at the detail, the devil's always in the detail. It's very easy to say, oh, there was a breach, there was a hack, but when you start looking at it, you understand actually how it could be prevented quite easily. So state of ransomware and cyber attacks in Africa, across Africa, it's quite scary. In South Africa, our government organizations have suffered quite a lot of cyber breaches in the last little while, and across Africa, they've also suffered cyber breaches, and often it would be for I want to say kind of like, you know, reasons that organizations across the globe have problems. So they struggle to have budget restraints, or there might be a political reason, or there might be some nefarious reason that you actually can suffer a breach. You might have an insider attack. Andria, Rob, I don't know if, or John, I don't know if you've actually had a look. I know, Andrea, you mentioned you had a look at some of the Africa incidences.
You know, we all have similar attacks. We are all under siege in the same kind of ways. You know, our healthcare, our municipal entities, cyber criminals pretty much know no bounds to their tactics and techniques and targets. So big or small, we do all have to protect ourselves, and we're all in this kind of together because all our entities, whether it's education, government, critical infrastructure, we all get hit pretty much in the same ways across the globe. So at least we can better share threat intelligence and, you know, learn from the lessons here today.
Yeah, and just add on to that. Oh, sorry.
No, sorry. Please go for it.
I think it's like so we actually, so what we do is we protect the human in the browser when they get a dodgy link, a suspicious link, and you know, so that's phishing, right? So I would imagine if, you know, Andrea were to analyze all these breaches and trace it back to how it started, I would put a paycheck on saying that a lot of them probably started with, you know, human, you know, social engineering, somebody getting targeted, sent a link that they clicked that maybe executed a payload, or they gave away credentials. So that's a big piece of the puzzle that we solve here at Conceal. So shameless plug, but I wanted to just
it's very true because, you know, the network and the web browser is literally an open door for cyber criminals. So we have to, you know, always keep a mindful eye on that, and of course mitigate with appropriate, you know, tools that we have.
Yeah, absolutely. Tools go far, but obviously the human element, training the human element obviously is the other angle. And I went to see a customer yesterday, and they actually said to me, in particular to this, we were talking about user education training, and they were saying to me that no, they're fine because they've had user education training. And they said, but there is still an element of users that are clicking on links that they shouldn't be clicking on. And they say it's the same users. And when they go back to it, the users that are clicking on these links are actually users that haven't done their training, but also users that frankly just don't care and are on sites and visiting websites that they shouldn't actually be on in the first place. But that kind of, even if it is the 5–10% that are clicking on those malicious links, that's how breaches occur. I mean, if you take it back to locking the office door, you'll have 5–10% that not lock, but it's that one day that the breach can occur.
So now I have to get, oh, go ahead, Andrea, sorry.
No, it's okay. I said it's very hard to change human nature. That's, I actually spoke about this recently, and the, you know, the awareness programs that we had even 6 months ago are not adequate to protect. They have to be dynamic in time because, you know, the you know, emails that had spelling mistakes or bad punctuation that we taught about 6 months ago to a year, now with AI and, you know, adversaries leveraging artificial intelligence, you will not spot any, you know, vocabulary mistakes. So it is very important to sort of not only use tools that take away that thought process. That's why I always think of, you know, Conceal Browse, because they actually, you know, leverage artificial intelligence and actually stop, you know, text input, and they, you know, create sessions in the cloud in a containerized environment. So sometimes we do have to start looking at, you know, tools that take away from, you know, thinking, because unfortunately, we're all human. We will not change behavior day and night, and you know, technology works at the speed of light. So it is very hard to give that responsibility to employees solely, and social engineering will always be the #1, you know, methodology for cyber criminals.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we have 3 cases we're going to just briefly run through, and this is the first case. I've specifically not wanted to use too many South Africa or Africa cases. It's easy, obviously, to look over the pond to some of the other cases that have occurred. Just because you might bump into those customers tomorrow, and I don't want to be the one to criticize the security environment, and that's not something we're doing here. I know that, but we're just reviewing. And it's difficult to look at an incident that's happened, in a rear view and say you should have done this and kind of be should have. But anyway, the horse is bolted, and as we say, those emails on those attacks are very, very targeted. So this is United Healthcare ransomware attack. I don't know if John, I know you had a look at this incident as well. I don't know if you want to mention anything regarding this.
Yeah,
sorry, I don't want to put you in the spot there.
Yeah, the biggest thing that happened here was, the lack of use of MFA on their Citrix account, their Citrix portal. So, all it takes is, I'm sure something Rob was about to say in the last talk was, we only have to be, or a hacker only has to be right once. We have to be right every single time. So in this particular case, by the lack of a user using MFA is how they got compromised and how the threat actor was able to gain access.
Okay. Yes, and I mean, obviously this is far-reaching consequences that occur when you're talking about healthcare being information that really should be protected and is very, very, very valuable in the dark web.
It just showcased the importance of a multi-layer, multifaceted defense strategy. It's just not one thing. It's not just, 2FA. It's, we have to protect the browser, protect user access, access management. So all of that is very important, and keeping that in mind, and it's having multiple different, sort of strategies, tools that all work seamlessly together is definitely like top priority.
Yeah.
And paying the ransom. Sorry, Rob, please go.
No, it's now since John said it too, I've got to get on my soapbox for just hopefully 30 seconds. But, and John's heard the story probably too many times, but prior to coming to Conceal, it's been just over a year now. I spent the better part of 7 years at we were the first to actually create phishing simulation training. So cybersecurity awareness company. And, we would do awards every single year for the organization with the best security awareness program. And we would measure that by the lowest click rate on their phishing simulations over that course of that year. And I can tell you from seeing over 2,000 enterprises results, the best security programs in the world are single-digit click rates. That's world-class. But if you think about it, 7-8% of your user population is a pretty wide net. And to your point, Bianca, the threat actors just need to score a single goal, right? So I just wanted to point that out. Yes, and to Andria's point, it is about defense in depth. We can't just say we're just doing this or just doing that. It truly has to be a holistic approach. So just wanted to make that point.
And I also don't think, just simply training. So, I mean, just to train me to identify these links better is virtually impossible. For me to know URL masking, hiding what a URL is, I mean, it's so easy these days. You can download simple tools to be able to do this, and so you can't train to that level of defense. Anyway,
it's too difficult. It's too difficult,
absolutely.
And it, like I said, it's very hard to compete against artificial intelligence. I work a lot with, artificial adversarial intelligence. So they are really utilizing the automation of it and the power of, artificial intelligence to build their attacks and their platforms and their ransomware as a service. And also going back to, paying a ransom, like in this case in particular, they did in fact pay a ransom, but like with all cyber criminals, I always say there's no honor among thieves. Therefore, I don't, I don't push for paying ransomware. I will, in all of my cases, I will fight tooth and nail to not pay a ransom because, like in this case, people's data. There was, a battle between the affiliates you know, Lockbit in this case, and then Lockbit were sort of, you know, who took the ransom, and then there was a you know, sort of like a fight between the affiliates, and the people's data is now held in limbo. It doesn't get destroyed. They don't do what they say. There's double extortion, and unfortunately, you know, it's hopeful thinking, and again, it goes down to human nature, thinking that if we pay a ransom, you know, all will be good. In fact, it isn't. Your data is still out there. It doesn't get deleted. So that's why it's very important to really think long and hard about what would happen if you do get, you know, do suffer a ransomware attack. But we are lucky today because we are here now with that thought in mind and able to take precautionary measures and build resilience in a very easy way. We have great companies, great tools, and it is a great investment because, like they say, you know, every breach, whether you pay ransom or not, will cost you on average $5 million to mitigate.
Yep.
Gosh.
One of the cool metrics to go along with that, you know, is it's about 10% of attacks like this that companies do end up paying the ransomware. And out of that, 22% never get their data back, and 80% of the time, it's usually kept by the threat actors and they're re-attacked and asked for more money.
Sure, those are interesting stats. That's actually quite scary. It's really scary that they continue actually coming back, and that they actually don't actually stop at the first attack, and that they keep the data. I mean, as we all know, they keep selling that data, reselling that data to the highest bidder.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's actually incredibly scary. So going back in time, how could this have been prevented, as we've been saying? So Andrea, you mentioned multi-factor authentication could have been one of the methods. I think, John, you mentioned this as well.
Yep, that is exactly how they got in. The organization was not using MFA, and on their Citrix network is how the threat actors were able to gain access. I guess one of the other things they've really found, the organization wasn't doing regular security audits and vulnerability assessments, which is how they did not identify that MFA was not being used.
Yeah, I suppose that's the first step. I mean, I often think that organizations, you first check where all your gaps are, and then from there you actually start moving out and actually hardening your defenses.
I think it's a given now with, I mean, you don't even have to do a risk assessment at this point. I hope to know that these are, you know, basic tools to put in and basic security to put in. And, you know, corporations and entities really need to take this very seriously, because if we do not build resilience and take the adequate measures, we're going to be seeing a lot of corporate misconduct cases and damages cases building up in the judicial system. So, you know, it's a hefty cost for a corporation that doesn't implement tools and tactics to protect the data and the public. Yeah,
absolutely. So case 2 is FCC employees targeted in a spear phishing attack. And a spear phishing attack, we briefly kind of touched on this a little while ago, but obviously spear phishing attack being a targeted attack. John, I'm going to hand over to you again, if you don't mind, to maybe just touch on this. I don't know if you are able to maybe give us some insight. I know you previously, we saw you speak about this a little bit regarding how they got in this instance.
Yeah, but this particular one was a 𝐋𝐞𝐬𝐬𝐸 attack. They used a sophisticated kit, which was 𝐋𝐞𝐬𝐬𝐸, to create replicas of single sign-on pages that were able to trick users and allow the threat actors to gain access.
Sure. So and via Okta, I mean, making it seem as if it's an Okta domain.
Correct.
Yeah, that's scary. Sorry, Rob?
Yeah, no, I mean, shameless plug here again for Conceal, but so one of the big value adds that we provide is when we scan a link, regardless of where that link came from, it could be corporate email. I could share a link right now over this video conferencing tool. Could have came from their mobile device. If we can't for certain say that it's safe, we'll put it into that containerized session, that sandbox environment that Andrea mentioned. And when it's in that environment, we'll actually disable the keyboard input. because we know 50% of all phishing attacks are credential theft. They want that username and password. So that's it, in my opinion. Very, big value proposition that we can provide is protecting from those phishing attacks that are trying to steal your users' usernames, passwords, sensitive information.
Our customer, Toyota Tanzania, who we actually have a public reference for, so we can discuss this briefly, is that they actually the reason why they really like Conceal is because they could actually see who was targeted in their organization a bit more. So they could actually identify from the reporting that Conceal does on the console who was actually the targeted users and who was clicking on more of these links. And from there, we were able to actually increase security for those specific users, various methods, but understand also that those users they do need more training, or they actually need more security around them. I thought that was actually quite a very, very nice use case, a very nice, understanding of the solution.
A lot of customers love that feature. You get to see who's being targeted in the organization. As you said, give them more training, put more security around them. So yeah, a lot of customers do love that, for sure. It's
great, and it's so important because cyber criminals do target. There's a whole process like the cyber kill chain where they do reconnaissance and they do profiling on their potential targets and victims. So they know who to target, they know how. I mean, they're building pages, login pages specific so that, a target can fall for it. I mean, that's social engineering at its best.
Yeah.
And our data is everywhere, actually. Our data, our personal information is actually everywhere. Bits of pieces of every time you sign in somewhere, every time the details about you, your resume that you've sent somewhere for, all your information is absolutely everywhere. So so easy to actually find so much information about us these days online. So yes, you would easily know that, it's so easy then to craft a very detailed spear phishing attack against a user specifically because of all the information that's out there.
Well, in 2024, I can say that the Information Regulator of South Africa has reported receiving over 150 data breach notifications per month, which is a huge increase. So people have to understand that the information is out there. They can be targeted in the future. This makes it just easier for cyber criminals to get in or manipulate and then, breach a company or an entity.
Our pension, South African pension fund was down for quite a while, and they were paper-based for a week or two. As far as I'm aware, I think it might have been a little bit more. So many of our public institutions have been targeted recently, and that's the difficult part, that it actually affects not only corporates, it affects the man on the street and the little old lady needing to go and draw her pension fund, and that's actually where it really becomes really sad, down to that detail. So Andrea, I know this is your case, so I would love for you to hand over to you on this one.
Well, Tennis Canada had suffered a ransomware attack where 350 endpoints were frozen with a black screen and the 𝐋𝐞𝐬𝐬𝐸 ransomware strain. So what happened in this case is that I came into the case just to prevent any payment to the cyber criminals, because unfortunately, when we are hit by ransomware, a lot of these in the time of panic, a lot of these policies just go out the window and panic sets in. However, it is so important to have an incident response plan, to attribute responsibility. But we cannot panic during ransomware attacks, because that's, again, a way for cyber criminals to play on emotion, and it's part of that social engineering package that comes with ransomware. But in fact, we were able to mitigate with great backups. So again, make sure that the backups are adequate. Snapshots are not backups. A lot of these ransomware cases make the news because either backups are not adequate, or, their tools were not adequate. I mean, I wish I would have known. I wish Tennis Canada had, you know, Conceal Browse. Somebody would have detected something before the ransomware would have hit. So glad to know that, you know, we can mitigate with all these tools adequately. But in fact, you know, I stayed on mandate to rebuild their infrastructure and to close all the gaps, you know, so in fact, there was some gaps, but they had done pretty much, you know, everything that a small organization could have done. But let me tell you, in this case, in fact, it was a machine in the middle attack. So that's why it's very useful to have something sort of closing that initial access, you know, where threat actors could come in through browsers, download their tools. I mean, we would have easily seen that or had that stopped with something like Conceal Browse, limiting, you know, all these activities through browsers, through that open door like I talked about.
Thank you. So some key takeaways. Sorry, I've now, I should have gone across to this slide straight after that slide, but and allowed you to kind of speak through this. But yes, I suppose this is exactly as you mentioned. Enhanced readiness for organizations to be able to ensure that they are more protected. But I'll keep thinking that cybersecurity mustn't be a roadblock. It mustn't be something users need to kind of go and have to learn in detail. They must be able to get on with their day job, and security mustn't even be something that the end user needs to even worry about or need to think about. It needs to be, in a way, a business enabler. I mean, the data that we collect from logs, from all these security solutions, actually should be a aspect that organizations can actually use to kind of make their organizations better and kind of have other business fulfillment within it. So it's definitely something I think that security should not be kind of for the end user to think about.
Well, we have great tools, and you have great tools at Grove, and you know, Conceal, you know, Browse is a great tool that take away a little bit of that thinking, that impossible, yes, you know, job that you almost have to do as an employee to be an analyst now. Either you don't click at all, or you know, you're fearful. It just sometimes. So, you know, we need to leverage the tools that are available, even invest in companies that, you know, do research and development in these tools. So I think, you know, we're very lucky to have, you know, the partners that we do have today, and, you know, offer this to the clients, because I could have prevented every ransomware, every incident that I've worked on, had they had that multi-layer and all the tools in place, which is not that difficult to implement, especially with a managed service provider. We could have been alerted. Somebody could have seen something could have been prevented way in advance, before even, you know, the threat actors could have come in.
Oh, absolutely. I completely agree. If I look at some of the incidents and being called after the fact to assist organizations, that's often it's basic stuff. Patching wasn't done. The user element, obviously, there's no multi-factor authentication. Rob, maybe if you can maybe touch on a little bit regarding Conceal, maybe take us a bit through some of Conceal's use cases, if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I could even show a very quick demonstration if I know how to share my screen. I've not used this platform before. Oh, present, that's probably it right there. Screen. Okay.
I always get very excited when I see tools like this. You know, when I first saw Conceal Browse, I was actually very impressed by the different types of preventative measures that it just seamlessly puts in place, and it integrates with all other tools. I just, I usually don't, speak about tools in particular, but Conceal Browse can be a great ally in that resilience program.
Especially because it's such a lightweight agent. You don't Sorry, go for it, Rob.
No. I mean, I appreciate the kind words and thank you so much. So this is the main dashboard. I won't spend too much time here, but I do want to point out what Bianca was talking about that Toyota Tanzania loves so much is that we show you your users that are frequently going into, this might be a bit easier, frequently going into isolation, right? So these are the people who are maybe clicking on dodgy links or doing some browsing they maybe shouldn't, they might need a talking to. Or secondly, these are the highly targeted people in your organization. So just such good information to garner here. But I'm on Chrome, but this could be literally any device. It could be any browser. And all we do is we simply push out through whatever software deployment tool that you use, Microsoft Intune, maybe it's GPO, etc. We silently push out this little extension. And what we're doing is we're converting their everyday browser into a secure browser. So that every time that they click a link, and this link could come from corporate email, it could come from web email. I could share a link right now over this conferencing platform and could be potentially harmful. LinkedIn messages, social media. So users are getting bombarded from all these different sources with these links. And going back to the security awareness training, we're hoping that they retain what they learned and they're hovering over that link and it's, they make that right decision 10 out of 10 times. With human beings, when you're dealing with humans, it's impossible, right? We're not machines. So the user is going to eventually click a link. And John, don't have a heart attack. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to OpenFish. And these are just links that SOC analysts around the globe are saying, hey, here's the latest phishing link. And we've got Cisco Umbrella, we've got DNS running, I've got CrowdStrike running on my computer. And I'm just going to click one of these links here at random. And a little bit of bead of sweat ran down my face, but thankfully, as that page loaded in real time, we were looking at the DOMs, the metadata, the redirects. We looked at the characteristics of this page, and our engine said something doesn't look right. It's got a 19% risk score. It's not known bad, which is 80% or more. We would just block that. So this is unknown bad, right? DNS filters run off of a database of known bad. It would not have caught this. Our CrowdStrike's a great, it could be sent to any EDR. They've got no visibility into these web pages. And frankly, that's why they've came to us to build these integrations, right? We've got integrations with EDR because they're very good at detecting code that's about to execute on an endpoint. They're very bad at knowing if a user went to a website and gave away their username and password. So that's the better together story there. But the user has three options. One, when they get this little speed bump page, they can return to the previous page, and we've bolded that by default because they should probably do that if we think it looks suspicious. They can submit feedback to say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Administrator, I go to this website all the time. Are you sure it should be in isolation? Can you double check it? So they can easily submit feedback, or they can continue on to the website by just clicking open in isolation. And now we've got this in a sandboxed, isolated environment on our server in our cloud. And we are reflecting the image of this website down to the user. But the two main value props here is one, any malware, ransomware, maybe a malicious payload, JavaScript, we're good to try to execute and download, it's air gapped. It would never gain a foothold on that endpoint and into your network. So to Andria's point, had they had Conceal Browse and we scanned that link, it could have prevented that code from executing and encrypting all of your machines and data. Secondly, we talked about credential theft. So in isolation, and I'm going to physically type on my keyboard right now, we disable that keyboard input. So if this was trying to scrape usernames and passwords, it would never have the ability to get that. We've blocked that. So that's just a very high level demonstration. I'll stop sharing at this point because if anybody's interested, Bianca and team knows how to get in touch with us. We'd be happy to walk you through a full-on demonstration and get you on a free trial and test it in your environment, which is really the best way to see the value. But any questions at this point, Bianca, or do you want to see anything else?
No, I haven't seen any questions come in. I don't know if anybody has a question they would like to ask. Another question I often get asked is regarding allow lists and block lists. If you have that, maybe you can show us that.
Absolutely. All right, so I will share my screen. Grab the right screen. Cool. So this is the admin console. This is what you on the webinar as the administrators of the product would see. If you go down here to is it policy? Yeah. So you've got the option of allow listing internal sites, right? Maybe it's internal sites you just never want to go into isolation, or we've got the block list as well. So you can easily put these on the allow and block list. And another thing I forgot to mention is we've recently included in the extension content blocking. So if you don't want your employees during work hours or any hour of the day going to adult websites, sites with drugs, sites with, we have got almost 90 categories to choose from, you can turn these categories off and on. And remember, we are native to the browser. So whether they're on your VPN in your corporate environment behind your four walls, or they're traveling halfway around the world to Toronto, Canada, where I am, or Montreal, where Andria is, they're always going to have that phishing protection and that content filtering as well.
Thank you. Thanks, Rob. That's great. Super. I'm going to, if anybody has any questions, please feel free to ask. But it looks like I might be able to give you some time back in your diary, a couple of 5 minutes or so. But yes, please feel free to get in touch with me or with somebody from Grove. Just you can send us a message on LinkedIn, etc. We do have a question. How does the tool handle connecting via mobile devices?
John, I'll hand that over to you.
Hey, Duncan, at this time for mobile devices, we currently do not support mobile devices. However, we are in dev and we have done our initial release to the iOS store for Safari and Apple devices, expecting that to go live in the next 4 to 6 weeks.
Super. Thank you. Great. Well, thanks everyone. Thanks for your time. Thanks to Brilliant Andria and to Rob and to John. I appreciate. Sorry, John, for putting you on the spot a couple of times. And thank you.
Our pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Take care.
Thanks. Have a good day.
Take care, everybody.
Cheers, everyone. Bye-bye.